guess what can
Sorry? Ben.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, it starts with
He's talking to me.
Good morning. Welcome to China Future Tech webinar hosted by South China Morning Post. And today's theme is China's open source movement in AI and how it changed the landscape of AI. I'm Zhou Xing, the tech editor at SCMP. Today's topic of China's open source movement in AI is a very important topic. And NVIDIA's Jason Huang has recently commented on it. It matters to the future of AI. Open source literally means models are free to be downloaded and modified by developers, while closed source, on the other hand, are sold on subscription basis. There are still more questions and answers regarding the pros and cons of two models. US big tech are largely betting on the closed source. OpenAI but they are not giving up their open source model. OpenAI just dropped two open source models before GPT-5. While all the Chinese big tech are now in the open source movement. Therefore, it's very good that today we have Ben, our tech reporter in Beijing, who has been covering China's AI industry for years, long before the world has started to pay attention to China's AI before DeepSeek, to talk about this open source concept and trend. And also William. William has been following on US-China rivalry for a long period of time. Also, we have Danielle, our new tech reporter, who will share her view on how third-party countries are going to choose between these two camps. Before we officially start, I would also like to let our readers know that we've launched a special section on SCMP website called China Future Tech, and you can use it to find all the SCMP coverage of 6 key sectors, namely EV, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, robotics, aerospace, and biomedicine. The first question goes to Ben. Ben, please tell us, what's happening on the ground of China's open source movement. What has happened in the last half a year since DeepSeek shocked the world?
Okay, sure. Some very top level summarization of the ramification of what happened after DeepSeek is it's now a standard for Chinese companies to release advanced and large and open source models. You wouldn't expect something else. No one is just coming out and saying we are releasing this closed source models. So this is because I think before DeepSeek came out after OpenAI just dropped the ChatGPT in late 2020, the mood in China's AI tech sector is totally different because people are asking why we don't have ChatGPT first. And then DeepSeek came out, it changed the narrative. People become more confident. So there's very fierce competition among the Chinese companies to release the SOTA, which is state of the art advanced, meaning advanced models, and speaking about how DeepSeek changed the landscape. Not just pumping Chinese companies to start releasing, change their tactics Baidu or Minimax and more sure they're more focusing on proprietary models before, but now they are also releasing open source models which is very advanced, and then some companies Baidu used to charge their chatbots early bots, but now they even refunded the services is telling users we don't need your money, just use our services for free because DeepSeek is there and putting these advanced models there for free for anyone to use.
So basically everyone is on the open source wagon.
Right, and not just in China and in the US, because not DeepSeek, OpenAI was saying earlier this year, they were saying probably we're on the wrong side of history, we want to release open source models, and they did, just 2 days ago, on Tuesday, they released this GPT or SS, which is small sized open source models, and that's an interesting thing there. I was talking about how fierce Chinese companies are in launching open source models, right? The fierce competition there, and just right after OpenAI launched its GPT OSS, which models yesterday I was going through news this morning, and then I saw Alibaba announced 2 new small sized models the Queen 3 and 4B this is you could almost feel like this is a direct response to just one day after OpenAI, and the last time OpenAI released a closed source model was 9 years ago. That was 6 years ago. That was in 2019. That was a long time ago. And then just one day after OpenAI came back on the closed source fear, and then Alibaba just coming out with something similar. So sometimes I joke to myself, this is probably the only area in China right now, because general tone in China right now is an anti-involution. You won't allow for this fierce competition, because it brings down the service level and it's harmful for the whole industry. But open source model fear is totally different. This is where you would expect this extreme evolution on Asian, because it brings this quality and stable and consistent releases of advanced models. And then I think a lot of other things has already been changed, but we can get to that later. And then
Yeah. So this is a positive evolution in OpenAI, in open source AI movement in China. William, I have a question for you. This is also a question from many of our subscribers of Plus. One reader, Guo Kong, is asking about the merits of China's overall strategy. Beijing is positioning, saying this open source is our answer to the US AI supremacy.
Yeah.
But the question is that really the case? Can China really rely on this open source path to, say, achieve its AI supremacy in rivalry with the US?
My favorite analogy is the AI race is a marathon that's been run at 100-meter dash speed. Nobody can give up. If you give up, the other side, it's a sure win. So US is clearly leading the charge with all the competitive advantages. It has the best chips. It has the best algorithms, the global talents who are there for the wonderful capital market, which value all the AI algorithms at the highest price. Obviously, I think US is leading the charge. But meanwhile, while leading the charge, US is also trying to make sure that China, which is not very far behind, don't catch up. US is trying to spill some water on the track and try to make sure China don't get the best track shoes to by that I mean the chips, right? So if you look at that as a strategy, you know that China's open AI strategy is it's a suboptimal, but it is the best response that it has to the given circumstances where US is going to continue to control the best chips for AI, especially the inference chips that would be very critical for the next stage of development. Mm-hmm. And China will have to, given all that inputs, that China will have to look at its own competitive advantage of looking at its humongous data sets and build AI on top of those things for China's own applications. Mm-hmm. And by offering things free, you can get more allies to put in their brains, their capital, to help you to grow your models. I remember, according to some of the, Face gave a number of around, after the R1 release of the DeepSeek, there are more than 500 derivatives based on R1 that came out on the same month, which shows that the scalability of such an open AI ecosystem might be a very good answer for what China is facing.
Mm. So this naturally leads to the next question about, like, if we are going to see the whole AI world divided into two camps, and what third-party countries like Europe, Latin America, Africa should do. What these countries kind of challenges and opportunities for these countries in this AI landscape?
I think the strongest course of action for them is to remain neutral. They may feel a pressure to align with one of the two global superpowers, especially since the US tends to favor singular alliances. But neutrality is important to have a voice in the future of AI governance. and development. BRICS countries may also feel a pressure to align with one of two, but remaining neutral has its significant advantages. Just earlier in July at the BRICS summit, the BRICS world leaders expressed a desire and advocated for AI governments at a institute such as the United Nations, which highlighted their desire to play a more central role in the future of AI governments. In terms of developing AI talent, which are workers at the post-undergraduate and post-doctorate level to work in these fields, the BRICS countries are emerging as very strong contributors to this. So in a recent International Finance Forum report, out of the top 20 worldwide contributors, India came in third after China and the States, and it also contributes to the existing 27% of the US's existing
in terms of talent, yes.
Talent today. The UAE came 16th, and Saudi Arabia came 19th, and Brazil came 18th. Brazil is also the South American leader in developing AI talent. So there's certainly this emerging talent pool certainly puts them as a rising kind of power, and they should maintain neutrality in order to be able to have a voice in governance in the future. Another survey recently found that 71% of US responders and 87% of European responders were open to adopting Chinese large language models. So neutrality can actually lead to benefiting from both sides. And of course, international collaboration is necessary as AI talent flows from the two superpowers and travels throughout the world to bring what they have learned and to develop kind of society as a whole.
Yeah. Very good, yeah.
But
do not put all your eggs into one basket. Basically.
Exactly, yeah.
Actually, may I just add my 2 cents to that? China's open source AI models are one of the very interesting ways that Beijing tries to exert its soft power, or rather some of the analysts now call it smart power, to the developing world, especially given the Chinese model, which is slightly behind in the performance, but it's much cheaper and much easier compared to the US counterparts for implementation. So for those countries in Asia, ASEAN countries, other part of Asian countries, Middle East, Latin America, Africa, all these countries will typically have very limited IT budgets and limited IT know-hows. And it's up to China to help them with its own technological infrastructures and networks.
I totally agree. I recently attended one conference and I met a guy from Africa, and he said, I asked him what's the problem with AI. He's like, there's no AI in my country. That's no problem.
So China can, with these open source AI platforms, which is cheap and pretty good, not as excellent as US models. Well, for some countries, they just want to have 0 to 1, where Chinese alternative is probably one of the way to go.
And this is very interesting. It's affordable. It's largely free. And then naturally, Ben, we have this question from many of our readers. One question is from Eric. Open source is very good, but what's the business model? How open source AI providers make money from their services if all widely available and freely available for download, and even when you take it, you can just play with it.
Yeah.
So what's the business model?
Okay, so basically, how they make money. So let's talk money or talk business. So I think you can think of an AI as software, and then this is usually or internet services because it's hosted on internet. So usually there are basically just two borderways. You can monetize internet services or software. You charge individually personal individual consumers, or you charge corporate clients. So because DeepSeek is there with its free and advanced models, which is available for anyone to use, and then it basically it means it's it won't make sense for another also Chinese internet users or consumers, they don't have this habits of paying big buckets, writing big check for internet services. So it's harder for and then there's very good and free services there, and then it's harder for them to monetize on the consumer front, unless you are proprietary and also vertical, those video tools or some agents, but that's another topic. So the second way to monetize services is charge corporate clients, which is we have this combination. We've seen this combination between Microsoft, this is Azure cloud, and also hosting OpenAI models, and then you charge access from your clients. So this is what happening in China as well. With Alibaba cloud, and then those chairman models or queen models, and then ByteDance is another very good example. I think those two companies will be emerging into in terms of profiting your open source model services. I think they are emerging as the leader clearly in the sector. And another area which is very niche, but we've seen this pattern before in the public cloud services sector, which is you're getting those government orders, but that will only sustain you for a short period of time. Or we've seen all those Chinese AI startups, they are getting government orders in those order volumes of tens of millions of renminbi. But that's similar to public cloud services. Yeah.
So my next question is for William. One reason we're caring about this open source AI movement is there are lots of concerns that this might undermine the valuations of existing, AI players. Like Ben said, you cannot charge consumers, and then if you are going to provide service to corporate clients, you have to go with clouding service. So if OpenAI's valuation is 500 billion, will that be an exaggeration? And also, so many U.S. big tech companies are investing hundreds of billions of dollars into the infrastructure. Can all these investments be justified, basically, if your service is going to become another infrastructure? Yeah.
I'm probably belong to the camp who are not so worried about the valuation part. But however, again, back to the marathon example, right? If you are the number one in Boston Marathon, you get 150,000. But the second guy get half of that. If you are the 10th, which you are pretty good runner, you only get 5.5K. The same thing goes for valuations. If you are the top company, the top in the industry and the second in the industry, usually the market capitalization can be you just take out 10 out of that, 1/10, right? So as someone who have been looking at from Web 1, Web 2 until now, I think this is a game where you have to face it. If you have all in on your closed model and you charge all your subscribers a certain amount of money, and some competitors who offer free options and take away your subscribers, too bad. Tomorrow you will have to answer to your board of investors and come up with new strategies to remain ahead of the whole game. However, I do not think that it's an imminent danger for the US leading companies because of broadly three things. Number one, from the financial data, you can obviously see that the leading US AI innovators are having a lot of very deep pockets. They are spending a lot of capex. Probably a ballpark is more than 6 times than the Chinese counterparts. This year, I think most of the people would agree that the total amount of capex the US leaders will spend will be around 300 billion, where the Chinese will be 20% of the range. Capex is very important for LLM to come out with better results and increasingly better models. Number two, I think they are spending a lot more, also 5 to 6 times more in absolute terms compared to the Chinese competitors. Again, because they have deep pockets and they understand that the Chinese is right behind them. If they do not run faster at a 100-meter sprint, if they go to sleep at one night, maybe next morning, there will be another DeepSeek moment for them. So I think the Americans are not sleeping at all. They are moving very quickly. Thirdly, like what Ben rightfully pointed out, they are making pretty good money out of, they have a much clearer revenue model on a per user basis. So it makes their valuation much clearer. Where open source, it's not saying that the Chinese companies will definitely lag behind or be smaller. But if you look at the handphone example, Apple's market cap is around above 3 trillion, where Huawei is probably 1/10 of that. So that says a lot about the ability to charge, which is still very much treasured by the market, I think.
Yeah, we're not financial investors, but you're mentioning this, like the U.S. companies can get easy access to capital and the valuation is much higher. And some people say, this means the risks of the bubble is also much higher than the Chinese AI players.
But there has been corrections already, right? When DeepSeek came, lots of people have a shocking moment saying that, wow, actually there is a free alternative.
Oh yeah, I remember that Monday when Nvidia lost like 500 billion or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So the market will respond to these kind of shocking moments and come back to a new equilibrium. But I still believe that the US company is still taking the lead, which would continue to justify their leading valuations. It's not something that undestructible. Yeah. Maybe it can disappear next day.
Okay. So this, Daniel, this follows to the next question asked by our readers is, what are the advantages of Chinese AI models globally? How can they maintain globally competitive with all William has just described of the US peers?
Well, I think we forget that China has one of the largest digital populations in the world, and as such, it has a very rich internal stream of data that it can collect from e-commerce, urban management, social media, finance. And this database is used as a very robust training foundation for these models. China also uses AI as a strategic tool for economic and social development, not just a market-driven technology, which is how the US sees it. It also has plans to implement it in everyday infrastructure, and as you can see with the new generation AI plan, it plans to have China become a worldwide AI leadership by 2030. Its strong technological and governance backing also leads it to expand globally. And again, these open source language models are free to implement, adjust, and edit. So they're very desirable for emerging economies as they're cost efficient to their Western counterparts. And they're, as we'll talk about, they are also easy. The point of open source is that you can adjust it to your needs and implement it and not pay a monthly subscription fee.
Okay. And so philosophically, for social development and costly, it's basically saving money.
Yeah. And also, I think the Chinese cloud service providers have been investing all around the world, especially in the developing countries like Malaysia and Saudi Arabia, a few of the developing countries where they are already providing lots of cloud services and all that, which is ideal for the Chinese AI companies to put their models on. Right. I think that infrastructure part also lay a very solid foundation for China's.
Speaking of infrastructure, one unavoidable question about China's AI is its lack of access to advanced chips. Ben. Okay. So this question is asked by many of our readers is, how can China overcome this hardware kind of problem? Okay. Can China really compete with the US without access to advanced chips? And what's the progress on the ground for China catching up in terms of the AI chips?
Okay. So I think for building and running a advanced AI systems, there are two different parts of it. Firstly, you need to train the models, and then you have to run it, which is inferencing process of it. So I'm going to talk about the inferencing in one part first, because I think I feel this is something that China has less to worry about. So we have this after DeepSeek. I think this is also because we're talking about open source today. So I think there's a lot of moments we'll go back to what DeepSeek has been doing leading changes in the landscape. So after DeepSeek's model came out, and then there's a lot of local chip makers more threads, and then and Embricon, so in Haigong, all those local GPU and also chip makers, they adapted their chips to power DeepSeek system. So so I think that's maybe their efficiency will be only maybe 80% or 70% something compared to using NVIDIA models, but you see Huawei has this cloud matrix 384 thing, right? So it means using 684 chips together in a parallel together, and then you power the system and you use this to influence the AI models. Huawei also had a paper saying you can use the cloud matrix to train models maybe as not as efficient as using an H100, which is off the table. So you deal with what you have, and so one of the disadvantages or actually advantages for using this larger system with less efficiency, but it's you need a lot of power to power that, but China doesn't lack of this power supply. We have a lot of green energy, wind energy, and all those. You can see this is why the U.S. was saying the Trump administration has the second AI action plan recently, and then one of the key recommendations for them is to power up our national grid to have more electricity supply, and this is one area China doesn't lack those advantages, and then so maybe we use more chips if 300 doesn't work, and then we 10 times it 3,000, maybe use more electricity, but China I was saying we have plenty of those, and this is the technical level, and if you depends on which consultants reports you're looking at. So some saying on Chinese infrastructure maybe 60 or 70 or 80% of NVIDIA's efficiency. So I think this is from the technical perspective. Another perspective which is very interesting is this tug of war of supplying China with H20. So you remember before. I think it's the U.S. government saying China included this talk of securing H20 as part of this trade negotiation, and then Chinese foreign ministry came out and saying no, sternly no, this is not part of the trade negotiation. So what I read from this is we didn't ask for it. And my guess is Chinese authorities probably talk to those industry executives and figure out whether we how dire is the situation we need this in H20, and then they figure out with those local alternatives with less efficiency, but we use maybe more chips parallel using them, and then we solve the problem, and then after recently Chinese.
Yeah, that's very interesting, because the space administration is having this public questioning of NVIDIA about its H20. Probably means that China has already alternatives to replace these products.
Yeah. Because I think one of the let's talk about aspect was China has lots of green energies, so so it can stack up more chips to perform the same one H20 because of all the solar, all the windmills, and all these green initiatives that's been put in to give Chinese companies a whole good dose of green energies. I think those are very cheap and pretty good, so China can afford to do that.
Yeah. And this is only one side of this question, about electricity, about chips. And then we talk about the software system. NVIDIA was dominant because partly of its Cuda platform. But now we are seeing Huawei's open sourced its CAN. So is China going to replace this kind of system as well, replace this platform as well?
I saw the reader's question. It was an excellent question, but unfortunately, this is not the decision for Beijing to make. In fact, I would arguably say that Washington is the key decision maker. If next morning President Donald Trump decided that no, I'm going to stop the H20 export to China, then China will have no choice but to switch back to Chinese hardware, Chinese software, and everything, then it will speed up the whole process of adoption of Huawei's CAN. However, having said that, I think Cuda by NVIDIA has a very unique advantage. Number one, most of the AI models needs chips, needs to connect various chips and various servers to work together. Right? Cuda is a much better language platform, and probably it is the leading platform.
Yeah, and
the
for
most
possibly
efficient
99% of the developers, they are trained with
Yeah,
this
in Cuda.
there. Yeah.
So, so it make it a lot more costly for people to switch over to Huawei's CAN overnight. And China is responding to Cuda's dominance in two strategies, where you have people like MoveThread. They basically build a layer on top of Cuda, saying that you can do your programming on my layer, and I will translate it into CUDA. However, this process is basically slowing down the process and wasting a lot of such capacities.
That's why on Chinese
need
social
those
media,
rules.
there's so many complaints from the developers about this time-consuming efforts of shifting the two systems. Yeah.
Yes, and I think CAN, with all due respect to Huawei for making this happening, this is by no means an easy task. It's still not as stable, and there has been lots of. If you read the all the platforms, social media, there are lots of complaints about CAN's stability, and sometimes let's put it that way. It has lots of room for improvement. So I think until Huawei make a good job on its the stability, robustness of its chips, I think the conversion would continue to be pretty slow. Yeah, and when US continue to allow H20's export, then it doesn't make a lot of sense for the programmers to convert, because when you can have H20, then we stick with H20, right?
Yeah. And is this, from the hardware, from the operating system, from the infrastructure? So this is coming to the next question about third-party countries. So if I'm an African country wants to use AI to improve my healthcare and education, for instance, and what are the key considerations for me if I have to choose between two open source or closed source AI systems? Daniel, yeah.
So, as we've mentioned, Chinese AIs are open source, which means they're customizable, implementable, and usable. That's the difference between with the US closed source models. As such, Chinese models like DeepSeek actively outperform Meta and OpenAI. They're also free to download, free to utilize. Like we've mentioned, US closed source models, after certain attempts, you have a $200 monthly subscription fee. You don't have that with Chinese models, as well as their lower costs to actually develop. In terms of actual development, DeepSeek has swept across China in the healthcare and space and infrastructure. They've made leaps in cancer diagnostic capabilities. In Hong Kong, PolyU has showcased where AI has been able to diagnose fatty liver and liver cancer. And ERNIE has been implemented in schools for lesson planning, helping students with alternative learning needs and regurgitating and reiterating information they've learned. In Japan, Alibaba's Qwen has been utilized in multiple companies that are now top performers in their game. And Alibaba's Qwen also recently worked with Beijing Hospital for cancer diagnostics. So this is just what they've been able to do while being cost efficient, free to customize and utilize, which is ideal for these emerging economies, which is the difference with the closed sourced $200 a month subscription fees that the Western models produce. So long term, it's very, very desirable for healthcare and education sectors in emerging economies, I think.
Okay, we have to make it a disclaimer that Alibaba owns SCMP. Yeah. Although we have to admit that Qwen is now the most kind of popular open source models for the whole world and the developers community. Now we have talked about so many good things about open source AI, but there are also lots of questions regarding the security of AI, particularly if open source AI models are in the wrong hands and they can do lots of bad things as many as they can do good things. So Chun, one of our readers, is asking about what China is doing, to ensure what kind of guardrails are China putting on these open source AI to make sure that they are safe. Yeah, Ben.
Okay. I think there's like nothing out of ordinary, their US peers or like a global competitors would do to secure the AI security. I think but if you're looking for like something specific like content security, I think China has one of the most tightest regulation in the world. So I think that's one way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. And
so security is a very hot kind of topic in the United States. Some
we have been writing non-stop
yeah.
on AI security.
They should ban the DeepSeek. They're taking data from the US and whether they are backdoors, to China. All these kind of allegations and guesses.
Obviously, these people doesn't quite understand AI model and AI model applications. But come back to the security side. Most of the people will talk about the prompt attacks, where people embed malicious codes into their prompts and ask for admin password, ask for data and all this. China has been trying very hard since 2003. I think it has come out with an industrial paper. It's a draft. I think I'm yet to see the full approved paper with the industry companies' feedbacks, but overall they list more than 31 risk items, which can be quite horrendous for outsiders like us to look at it. Overall, I think all the AI companies in China has implemented at least on the top layer kind of prompt filtering, and many of the companies that we talked to, they told us that they will have another layer beyond the prompt to standardize the prompt, filter out all the malicious words, and to make sure that it doesn't go, all the bad things doesn't go to the orchestration layer. But increasingly, we are seeing more companies start to build in their defense at the orchestration level also. So there will be multi-layered defense for some of the companies. And one report was very interesting for Douyin. Actually, it was reported by the CAC, the Cyber Administration of China. They said that during one of the latest campaigns, starting in April, I think, they asked all the Chinese companies to work on their AI safeties, and they listed Douyin as an example where they obviously employed some hackers to attack on Douyin's AI programs and all that. It's a red team, blue team kind of competition, and found some of the loopholes and they patch it, which are legit actions, I think, showing that Chinese company does take such risks very seriously.
No, it's almost like a military exercise.
Yeah, and I mean, just take this one step forward, right?
Yeah.
If we are rivals, I might want to test your system's robustness.
I'm sure they're testing every day.
Yeah.
So one outstanding question about China's AI systems, AI models, is about censorship. When DeepSeek was newly launched, people are testing different questions and deliberately some, sensitive questions so that the system generates no answer or refuses to answer, and then they say, see, this is to prove that this is completely useless, or this is completely owned, controlled, or manipulated by the Chinese state. So what's your response to that, Ben, about censorship issue?
I think there's always a lot of preconception and also misconception about censorship in China. Actually, I was going through some online researches. One that I found is Chinese model because they're downloadable, right? You don't use the one that hosted on China infrastructure. So if you download those models and then you implement them locally, for a customer in Germany or in France, and then when they're using this prompts and asking about political questions, and then it's less restrictive as those online hosted versions. So that means open source models that you can always circumvent those restrictions. And then we already seeing some companies doing that. Perplexity was talking about that.
Yeah.
They had this R1 and
Yes.
one So a modified version of R1 basically stripped away all those Chinese censorship and stuff, and then you can just use it. So this is one.
So this is like an onion, and the censorship is the most like the outside
Outer-
skin. You can just peel it off and put on your skins. Okay.
Yeah. This is just one way of to look at it, and then there's a paradox here. It's this is a public research facility. They have this. It's called speech map in .ai. So they discover they research about this U.S. political speech, about this, hatreds or arguments and stuff. I'm looking for this, PC stuff, political correct stuff. And then they found Chinese models actually tend to be more permissive. In general, Chinese models, open source models are more permissive than US models in general. So this is a paradox here. If you're looking for something with less censorship, you probably would go to a Chinese model because it censors less about Western topics. I think it doesn't make sense because this.
So are you saying China models are actually less censored than most of the so-called mainstream models in the United
mainstream in the US? In generally, when it comes to Western topics, doesn't make sense because it's developed by Chinese companies. They probably not even they wanted to add in those Western values, but probably they are not familiar with all all those data systems and sensitive questions. They won't be include everything there. So this is a paradox,
But
Yeah, William, you have anything to add on this censorship issue? Because this is also a very big story.
I'm going to say something that's not 100% politically correct. Nobody likes censorships. And even within China, I think censorship has been there since the country's internet infancies, right? And the censors grow with the industry, where yes, in China's political system, it does offer lots of kind of censorships, especially on political and some other sensitive items, where in the newsroom we read them day in, day out. However, that doesn't mean that besides that there is no sizable internet companies, internet industries growing out of that apolitically, right? Despite all these censors, China still have 1.1 billion internet users. They use internet day in, day out. And up to now, there are more than 4,500 AI companies. According to Chinese government numbers, the total market valuation is around 84 billion US.
And then over 1,500 models or something like that.
Yeah.
You can mind-boggling.
So I think, yes, all the concerns about the Chinese models might help the Chinese government to advance their propagandas, their whatever scheme. It's besides that, where there is a very apolitical part of that, helping us to boost our productivity, help us to make our jobs easier, and by that, I think all these Chinese companies, you just take a cut from the increase in productivity. That's already a very good business.
Yeah, I
Especially,
agree. I agree
yeah.
with you. Yeah, it shouldn't occupy so much attention about when we talk about AI models. Yeah. So the question is about after security and censorship, let's talk about governance. Daniel, I know you have a very strong opinion about how we should, all the world should unite together to have a proper governance system of AI. Can you talk about this? What's the future way to govern AI in this reality of like two different AI camps?
I think we need to strive for a UN-centered, multipolar AI governance framework. It has to be inclusive of businesses, of governments, of academia and civil society. But that being said, it also has to enable countries to pursue their own interests and develop on their own. We also have to strike a delicate balance between national security and public transparency in order to be able to build both domestic and international trust. What we often forget is that the AIs may feel very human, but they are also reflective of the algorithmic biases of their creators. So that's what often we're ingesting, even though they're responding to prompts. So we need to ensure data fairness, and we need to find frameworks that address these biases as well.
Yeah. This is a very ideal situation. You speak like a United Nations senior official.
I don't think that's going to happen
exactly.
in the near future.
We have J.D. Vance walking to Paris Newman and saying, "This is my way or the highway."
Yeah, but Joshi, obviously, I think this will be further divided into two camps: the China-led camps and the US-led camps.
Yeah, and also, William, I want to ask you about this recent China initiative or China proposal. We should have this. A global multinational kind of AI governance committee proposed by Premier Li Qiang at the World AI Conference in Shanghai. Yeah,
Which is
will it have followers?
It will definitely. It definitely will have some countries following it, especially from the developing world, where but obviously the developed countries will obviously want to take the cue from the US side on what's a better AI governance model, where they would definitely want to put in like transparency, no censorship, and their own lines of politically correctness, where the Chinese side will have its own. But that brings to my whole point is, between these two camps, the key dialogue should happen between Beijing and Washington, where Ambassador Cui Tiankai and previously the US side was led by Kissinger, I think, but he passed away. I'm not sure who is running that now.
No, they have some agreements. They agree that AI should not take control of the nuclear.
That's arguably the biggest risk that we face. And just imagine if AI is controlling all the weapons around the Taiwan Strait. Just in case one day some AI go crazy, we will sleepwalk into a war. So such things are really very important for security purpose and for the world's peace. I think of course, UN is very important, but it's multi-country kind of dialogue. It typically goes nowhere. It typically takes a very long time and very difficult to achieve a consensus. But I think what's most important is China and US, the two AI powers, got to sit down, draw their red lines. I will not do this. You will not do that. And let's all live within the red lines. That's critical for us to live in a safe world. Yeah.
And within the red lines, we can have a free competition to see which one. So this comes to my last question, concluding question for all of you. So in 5 years' time, please envision in 5 years' time, what kind of like this AI landscape will look like. Which open source AI will win, or the closed source AI will win, or which kind of like AI players are likely to be the dominant one in the world, Chinese ones or US ones. Starting from you, Ben.
Okay.
5 years.
I'm kind of like worried less about which camp will be winning, either closed source or open source. We have the saying in China, 黑猫白猫抓到老鼠的就是好猫. So like a white cat or black cat, whatever, whichever catches the mouse is the better cat. So I think either camp, whether one of them can advance AI to the level that I see, in all those sci-fi fictions, and I would be really happy to live in a world like that. And also with this security, because I was talking with some industry, and people they're saying maybe it's gonna happen, when AGI will be happening in the next 5 years or something, and then when AI is as smart as people, as humanity, and then maybe that's the day we should be worried a bit about our safety, because when humans are at this intelligence level, what we did to the animals, so maybe there's one day when AI has its own conscience, and then that's the doomsday for us. So I want an AI to be able to the sci-fi level of intelligence, but also we can live safely in that environment. I think that would be what I wanted for AI AGI.
Okay, Danielle, you have any vision for the 5-year time horizon?
I think that open source AI will benefit emerging economies more, and they'll benefit and they'll be able to grow and develop in this capacity. However, we're also seeing that AI is taking over mental activities in the offices and being able to replace workers. So unfortunately, I think we are seeing an interesting trend of jobs such as plumbers and construction workers actually rising in value, and then cerebral jobs are actually slowly being taken over by agentic AI. That's not being said that we cannot use them to our advantages, but kind of cerebral work is going down. Also, our relationship with the creative landscape is changing as well. I hope it changes for the better, but at the rate it's going now, it's almost like creative and cerebral works and activities are being slowly replaced by AI. So I'm hoping we can draw some red lines that allows humans to contribute to that and allows the original AI to come out on top. But I do think that open source AI, it has amazing implications for emerging economies. We should aim to build infrastructure development in the global south, and it has wonderful implications, but also some dangers, as we're seeing, because it is very new. We're also only 3 years in from OpenAI doing its grand debut with ChatGPT, so we have to see.
Okay, yeah, William, in case 5 years, let's assume that AI hasn't taken over all the jobs in this.
Sorry, for being a devil's advocate here, I've been always playing the role. However, I think I always again come back to the marathon case. 5 years is probably
too long.
No, too short to decide on who will win and I believe this race wouldn't have no clear winner. Clearly, in 5 years' time, President Trump will probably be out of the picture. There will be a new election. There will be a new administration looking at US AI trajectories. But in Trump administration's AI action plan, it said we need to make sure Americans take the lead on the open source platforms that's founded on American values. So it is one of the big signal that US is waking up to the China's challenge globally on the AI scenarios. And I believe it's not difficult for US to scale down from their existing charging models, paid models, to offer open models, which is all you need to do is just slightly better than the Chinese ones, and you offer it at a competitive rate, and US will be able to be another major force to be reckoned with in the world's free, open AI arenas. So again, to me, in 5 years, I think a lot of countries, especially US allies, will be more than happy to pay a few $100 subscription to Washington. And given the amount of money that they are paying for Trump's various trade sanctions and all that, I mean,
that's
let's
very,
pay for
very
AI.
interesting. Yeah,
That's
so 5 years ago,
problem.
we can still see this rivalry going on. Yes, it's
Yes.
an ongoing process.
Meanwhile, China will continue to deepen its foothold on developing countries, helping out the world's poorer countries to apply AI to have better public health, to have better education, to advance China's global footprint. I think that's going to continue to play out. Yeah,
Very good. That's a very positive end to today's discussion. So yeah, this brings an end to today's webinar, and thanks all for staying with us. For S&P readers who are interested in China tech, please once again remind you to follow the China Future Tech section on the website to find the stories about 6 sectors: EV, AI, semiconductors, robotics, aerospace, and biomedicine. And for those who would like more than the usual S&P content, please also subscribe to S&P Plus. This is a feature product that provides insights and in-depth analysis of news stories. On that note, briefing about China's AI industry has been released exclusively on S&P Plus, which is our premier subscription tier for business leaders in the China Watchers. As a special offer, we are also providing an exclusive preview of the report to viewers of this webinar. Feel free to scan the QR code on the screen to access it. Once again, thank you for watching and see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.